Welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at the wildfires raging across Los Angeles County.
Yeah, it's been a really intense few days with these fires burning out of control in Pacific Palisades, Altadena, Pasadena, even Sylmar.
And just the sheer speed of these things, it's incredible. Yeah, some residents had to just abandon their vehicles, flee their homes.
Yeah, it's a very serious situation, and I think what we're really seeing here is the effect of these extreme weather conditions.
Right, like those powerful winds. We're talking 99 miles per hour, which is just insane.
Yeah, that's basically hurricane-force winds.
Right, and these winds are not only fueling the fires, but they're making it almost impossible for firefighters to fight them. They had to ground firefighting aircraft because it was just too dangerous to fly.
Yeah, if you can imagine trying to, drop water or a target on a fire when the wind is pushing it sideways at 99 miles an hour is just impossible.
Yeah, makes you wonder, what else could they even do?
Well, I think it really highlights the need for more preventative measures. And then when you have conditions like this, dry brush, drought, years of drought, and then these extreme winds, it really creates this perfect storm for these rapid wildfires to spread.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the drought because I was reading that the chaparral, like the vegetation in these areas, has basically turned into a tinderbox, and these winds are whipping through canyons. It's a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. Those plants are so dry that the oils in them are basically volatile. So any little spark, can just cause a massive explosion of fuel across the entire landscape.
And it's hard to comprehend the scale of this. The Palisades fire alone has already burned over 2,900 acres. Yeah, and that's just in a matter of hours.
Yeah, that's an enormous amount of land to burn in such a short period of time. And I think what's important for people to understand is the impact this has not only on the residents, potentially losing homes, businesses, displacement, but also on the ecosystem.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't often think about the ecosystem.
Yeah. We're talking about wildlife habitats being destroyed, air quality being severely impacted. This reaches far beyond just those immediately impacted by the flames.
Right. And speaking of those immediately impacted, there have been reports of firefighters facing some pretty unexpected obstacles, like dry fire hydrants.
Yeah, that was a major issue in the Palisades fire, especially because, those hydrants are supposed to be bad. That infrastructure is in place for a reason. And it really just highlights that even with the best equipment and the best training, these fires are just exceeding our capacity to control them.
And, when you add in the difficult terrain, like the steep canyons in the Palisades area, it just makes it even harder for firefighters to even access the fire, let alone put it out.
Absolutely. It's extremely hazardous for the crews, and it really limits our ability to contain the spread.
And of course, the Palisades fire is not the only one burning right now. We have the Eaton fire in Altadena and Pasadena, and that one is presenting its own set of challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. That fire is incredibly close to residential areas. It spread so quickly that widespread evacuations were almost immediate.
It's going to be so much harder to fight a fire when you're also trying to protect structures and make sure residents are safe.
Oh, absolutely. think about it. You've got crews trying to battle these massive flames, and they're also having to worry about, embers landing on houses, making sure people are evacuated. It's just incredibly complex situation.
And we even saw the fire jump into nearby communities, Sierra Madre, Arcadia, and that's just another example of how unpredictable these fires can be.
And a lot of that spread was fueled by these wind-blown embers. Think about it. You have these tiny pieces of burning material that can travel for miles in the wind and land anywhere, igniting new fires in a completely different area.
So how are firefighters even supposed to predict where these embers are going to land?
Well, that's a huge challenge. I have to constantly analyze wind patterns, the topography, even the types of vegetation that are most likely to, create those embers in the first place. However, it's basically this constant game of trying to anticipate the fire's next move, which is, it requires incredible expertise and a lot of luck, honestly.
Well, with everything we talk about, so much of this seems beyond human control. What does all this mean for us moving forward?
Well, it's a stark reminder that, nature is a powerful force and we can't always control it, but it also underscores, the critical need for preparedness. I think we need to start rethinking things like building codes, community planning, invest in more robust early warning systems.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the question isn't if these fires will happen, is how do we adapt and mitigate their impact? And how do we better protect our communities and our environment in the face of, these increasingly frequent and extreme weather events?
It's definitely a lot to think about, but it's a conversation that we need to have. So thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And to all our listeners, stay safe out there, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.